Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Saturday, July the 26th, 2025, which makes this the news for Friday, July 25th, day 1248 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv, coming to you live from this major European capital currently under siege. Though not under an air alert tonight. We are not under an active air alert, which is nice for a change. Hey, Helena. Hey, Anthony, Tommy, Tom. Hey, Tim. Thanks, pal. How's everybody doing tonight? Hey, PH. Hey, Sharon. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. It is a Friday. Good evening, Alan. It is a Friday evening for me. Maybe afternoon for you, or even morning on the 26th. There's June. June is the sponsor of tonight's live. Everybody thank June, please. Thank you, June. June joined the Patreon recently as well. The Patreon is what makes this possible. So if anybody out there has been thinking about joining the Patreon, I encourage you to. Hey, Richard Prexis. Hey, Michael Boucher, greetings. Evening, Dan. Evening, Jeff. How is everybody doing tonight? Evening, Tina. I don't know how summer is where you are, but it is glorious here in Kyiv. If it weren't for the air raids, martial law, and curfew, I'd be in heaven. Oh, and let's not forget the protests in the streets. Hey, Darryl Roberts. Evening, Courtney Davis. Hey, Parda. How you doing, buddy? Well, good evening, everybody. So this is the news update for day 1248 of the war. Humid and 27, says Steve Kennedy. I can't get centigrade. Like, that just doesn't mean anything to me. I have to translate it in my head. Clinkers Kelly says, was Zelensky trying to pull a fast one? Well, Clinker, I hope not. But that is the concern, right? If we're being honest, if we're being clear, the worry is that in this anti-corruption question, was Zelensky legitimately trying to stopper the influence of the Russians on the anti-corruption agencies themselves? Or was it a move to let his friends in inner circle pilfer the treasury any way they want? That is the concern. Yes, it is. Now, if he undoes it, which is what the draft law that's currently in the parliament will do, we can all breathe a little sigh of relief there. But the protests continue. The protests are ongoing until the law has been addressed. And so, the people are still out in the street making their voices heard. They want to see the government follow through with their promise to fix it. And, Clinker, it's very hard. This is a very complicated internal political issue. And I'm not really entirely qualified to comment on it too much. But I think that you have addressed what people are worried about. And whether or not that worry is justified, we'll have a good sense of in the next couple days. Use Kelvin. Hey, Mad Mike. It's about 80 degrees, everybody's telling me. 27 is about 80? Okay. That's funny because I thought 30 was about 90. Is that about right? Maybe it is. I don't know. Hey, Chris Carter. Hey, Nicola Jones. Hey, Tommy Weber. How's everybody doing? Hey, Clay Fry. 97 in Phoenix. Ooh, a cool day, huh, Mike? Nice. Hey, Debbie. Hey, Michael. 37 is 97. Phew. Hey, Tom Weber. Hey, Mike Kelly. Okay, so last night, what everybody here in Kyiv is worried about, Pravit JR, what everybody here in Kyiv is worried about is that last night we only had 61 drones come in. I know, right? Only 61. But the talk, the rumor mill is spinning. And what they're saying is that the reason we only had 61 last night, 70 the night before, why we're having these small attacks, is because the Russians are stockpiling drones. They are stockpiling drones in an effort to overwhelm Ukraine with 1,000 drones a night. Now, if they can't send 1,000 drones a night right now, and they're having to stockpile so they can do it in the future, what does that say about the manufacturing industrial base? I mean, to the best of our knowledge, they're only making about 5,400 Shaheds and decoys a month. How much would they have to they would have to increase production by 6 times to do 1,000 drones a night. And I don't know that they can. Hey, Robbo. Hey, Big Hawk. 90% humidity in Kansas. All of America is swamp ass. It's just all swamp ass. Hey, Akron. So last night we saw 61 drones come in, 54 of them suppressed with electronic warfare or shot out of the sky. And that's an 89%, almost 90% interception rate. Swamp ass in Canada too. Hey, Monzi. Hey, Van. You're funny, rub it in, Clay. Rub it in, pal. Now, our buddy Guy, speaking of Canada, our buddy Guy said to me in a comment that the Patriots have already arrived in Ukraine. Yay. And I said, Guy, what are you talking about? The Patriots are months away. And I think for the most part, I'm right that, you know, these so-called 5 systems that they're supposed to be getting for Ukraine, down from the 17 Trump promised, which of course was nonsense. We all knew that. Joe Barnes, the Brussels correspondent for the Telegraph, for the London Telegraph, broke a story today that in fact Patriot missiles, PAC-3 missiles, and at least one Patriot battery have in fact already arrived in Ukraine. And he gives this incredible story, which I don't know that it's to be believed, but this is what he's reporting. Joe Barnes, Brussels correspondent for the Telegraph, is reporting that new Patriots and PAC-3 interceptors have arrived in Ukraine. According to his reporting, does everybody remember, and I remember talking about this, but does anybody remember, back on July 4th when the Polish embassy in Kyiv was hit by falling drone debris, right? It wasn't hit directly by a drone, but it was hit by falling drone debris. And a small fire was started at the embassy. The embassy was damaged. Radoslaw Sikorski, the Polish defense minister, gets on the horn July 4th to Keith Kellogg, Trump's special envoy to Ukraine, and says to him, Keith, the Polish embassy was hit in last night's attack. You know, yesterday, Trump gave Putin 50 days, because it was on July 3rd that he announced the 50 days. Trump gave Putin 50 days. Well, today, less than 24 hours later, Putin is mocking you. He's mocking the United States. He's demonstrating to you that he has no respect for you or for the president. And in fact, he has no respect for NATO, her allies, and our sovereign ambassadorial properties. Right? Because, of course, Poland is a NATO member. Hitting the embassy of a NATO member should cause some concern for all your allies. Hey, Flip. Trump says to Kellogg reportedly, now remember, the week before this happened, the United States had 30 Patriot missiles in Poland ready to come to Ukraine. And Hegseth put a stop to it. So what does Trump say? He doesn't say send the 30 missiles. He says send them 10. Then get on the horn to Pete Hegseth and tell him to get the aid moving. And apparently that is what has happened. So at this time, according to the reporting from Joe Barnes in the London Telegraph, those 30 missiles that were stuck in Poland have now been transferred to Ukraine. And according to unnamed Ukrainian officials, as reported in the Telegraph, one Patriot battery at least has arrived. Now, where did it come from? How did it get here so fast? That's a question that we have to be asking ourselves, because there is no world in which, you know, how many days is it now? It was the 14th of the month when Rutte and Trump made their announcement. So it's 11 days. There is no world that you could live in where an entire Patriot battery could be assembled, shipped, and be in Ukraine in 10 fucking days. That's not a real thing. Unless it was already scheduled to be here and the Trump administration was holding it up. Now, I don't know that to be true. Paul, I have no idea what you're talking about, because Paul Smith is saying a complete fabrication down here, completely untrue. He's saying 20 of the 30 went to Israel and are still there. Well, Paul, there's no reason to send Patriot missiles to Israel because Israel doesn't have any Patriot batteries. So that doesn't even make any sense. So no, all 30 of those missiles are now in Ukraine. Just to be clear about what something like the fucking truth looks like. All you guys slamming Israel all the time. It's unbelievable to me. It's pure Nazi anti-Semitism is what it is. Distraction and bullshit. Distraction and bullshit, motherfucker. Well, we don't know what happened to their Patriots, Steve, right? They definitely had 8. Where those 8 are right now, or what's to become of them, or will they come here, is unclear. Maybe this Patriot battery that arrived so suddenly out of nowhere is an Israeli Patriot battery that was donated to Ukraine, but the Israelis aren't taking credit for, because they don't want to piss off Russia, right? Hey, Sammy. So it's very unclear to me. But Guy, you were right. There is at least one Patriot here. And I'm not going to listen to you justify your racism. Like, you can fuck right off. So there is at least one here. Bada bing, bada boom. If this reporting is to be believed. Because there's a part of it that is unbelievable. It took It took the United States allies years to get a single Patriot battery here. If the United States, if I'm wrong, and if the Trump administration wasn't holding this shit up so that it was just there and could be delivered the way that it appears to have been, if I'm wrong and that's not what was going on, then frankly, the alternative is far worse. The alternative is that when the United States wants to get shit done, it can get it done like that. Which means that all of the criticism that was labeled at the Biden administration for slow walking weapons deliveries to Ukraine, for bleeding Ukraine dry in order to bleed the Russians dry at the cost of Ukrainians, is all legitimate. That the United States could have got its shit together and gotten the weapons here a lot fucking faster. And we didn't. Now, of course, I'm sorry, I got distracted by Chester Cheese's comment here. Could it have been a repair of an existing system? Almost certainly it will be, right? Anything that's showing up on Ukraine's doorstep is likely to be refurbed, retrofitted donations of an existing system, not a brand new one. Although the two that are coming from Switzerland, diverted from Switzerland, they were ordered by the Swiss, built for the Swiss, but those two systems are being diverted to Ukraine. Those will be brand new systems. Certainly the 8 Israeli systems would be repairs, refurbishments. Although where are they? Where are those 8 systems? Nobody knows. Hey, Dawn. Okay. Reuters is reporting that the Russian state parliament, the Duma, is likely to pass a sweeping export ban of all refined oil products. Now, in the past, with these export bans, there were exceptions to the bans. Everybody that's in the Russian kind of common market, right? Their Dollar Tree common market version of things. Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Belarus, they can all still get their exports, right? They can still import gasoline from Russia. Large exporters of refined oil products under the earlier export bans could also continue to fulfill their contracts for overseas export of refined oil products. It looks like it looks like things are bad in Russia, because it looks like this export ban will apply to all producers of refined oil products. It will still allow exports to those closely tied nations like Kazakhstan, Belarus, etc. But other than that, nobody else is going to be getting refined Russian oil products for some time. We don't yet have word on when that export ban will go into effect. But we're going to watch that, because it signals, one, that Russia doesn't have enough gasoline for itself. Now, we know that production inside of Russia is probably down somewhere between 13 and 15%, because Ukraine has closed a couple oil refineries, right? And reduced production, reduced capacity at other oil refineries, means that they're just not producing as much as they have in the past. Prices are up inside of Russia, even though prices are controlled by the state government, by the state there. They are up. every single barrel of refined oil products that Russia sells nets at about $100 a barrel. That's important revenue that comes out of the Russian economy. So this is a self-imposed sanction where they're not going to sell refined oil products to the rest of the world for the foreseeable future. We'll see what happens there. Now, the ISW, the Institute for the Study of War, is quoting Russian mill bloggers in the Sumy direction who are complaining that the number one cause of death in Sumy are landmines laid by the Russians. So the Russians have invaded a territory of Ukraine that they were in and had been kicked out of 2 years ago. The area is littered with Russian landmines, and apparently nobody in Russia has the fucking maps. And so the troops are getting blowed up on their own landmines, right? Because they invaded again, they crossed the border again there and are running over their own landmines. These mill bloggers are also claiming that the second leading cause of death in the Sumy direction among Russian Federation forces is friendly fire. Apparently, the 810th Marine Brigade and the 137th VDV were recently in a firefight that had... I know, Steve, it's not funny, right? It's not funny. But the 810th and the 137th chewed each other the fuck up in a close quarters firefight recently. Lots of casualties on both sides, apparently. Now, the ISW quotes these same mill bloggers as claiming that there are North Korean reserves on the way. Now, this is important because up until now, the North Koreans have only fought inside Russia for the defense of Russia. If the North Koreans come down and cross the border and start assisting the Russians with taking Ukraine, that is a whole new dimension to this war. And we'll have to see what the international community says about North Koreans murdering Ukrainians on their own soil. So we'll see. Starlink had a brief global outage yesterday, 150 minutes. And according to interviews that I've seen with some of the guys on the front line, those were the 150 of the longest minutes of the war, which really does highlight the importance of instantaneous global communication for success on the battlefield. You have to have, for ongoing operations, you need to have real-time communication or guys get killed. So yesterday was a tough day for a lot of folks. It's one thing if you use Starlink to get to your kids' soccer practice. It's another thing if you're using it to coordinate activities across multiple fronts. No explanation from Starlink for the outage, for the cause of the outage, has been given to the best of my knowledge at this time. Now, while the Russians only launched, we don't know Jarno. He has done it in the past. He has done it in the past twice that we know of. It's possible he did it again. I certainly wouldn't put it past him. Now, in Stavropol, the Ukrainians, for their part, while defending against a smallish drone strike last night, the 61 drones coming in, they are not stopping the massive attacks against Russia last night again. Some of the targets that are confirmed as having been hit include a chemical plant in Stavropol. Novocherkassk, which we talked about last night, came under drone attack for the second night in a row, closing the Sochi airport for a second night in a row, and multiple explosions were heard around Novocherkassk, while in nearby Rostov, a railroad junction was hit. Now, I mean, really, come on. If you're not seeing the pattern here, you are not paying attention. The railway junction in Milarovo, the railway junction in Rostov, the railway junction in Krasnodar, and now this railway junction in the east of Rostov Oblast. Boom, 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 boom. Taking out the railway hubs from north to south, just like that. All those hubs feed into the Mariupol to Jankoy line that feeds Crimea. What do you think the Ukrainians are trying to do? Cut off logistics to Crimea, cut off logistics to the front. 70% of everything that goes to the front line goes down that Jankoy Mariupol line. If nothing feeds it, it will starve. Now, the northern front is better off because they've got other rail lines coming down from Moscow and St. Petersburg. So there's alternatives up there. But for the southern front, this is going to be a real problem. This is going to be a real problem, especially as they continue to hit those rail logistics and make life harder. With that, I was looking at a map with that rail bridge out that they hit in Krasnodar yesterday. I mean, the whole, like all the way from the rail lines that follow the Caspian Consortium pipeline, they're cut off now. I don't know where the next, I couldn't find a switching crossover point anywhere to get to that northern line. But even that wouldn't matter because then when you come into Rostov, the station's been burned to the ground. So, yeah, if you guys haven't seen 120 days in Mariupol, was it 120 days or 20 days? I think 20 days, 20 days in Mariupol. If you haven't seen 20 days in Mariupol, I really can't recommend it enough. For Americans, it was free on YouTube. I think it still is. Richard is correcting me. He's saying it is 20 days. Yes, 20 days. Okay. So 20 days in Mariupol, highly recommend. It felt like 120 watching it, let me tell you. But the people that tune into this channel are not people who turn away from what's going on in the world. So I would encourage it. The Nemiskovsky Azov plant, one of Russia's largest explosives facilities, has been hit, and a large fire is reported on the territory of the plant. In occupied Donetsk, there was the local governor said that NATO missiles targeted the territory of Donetsk, and that's all we know about that. There was some kind of a missile strike in Donetsk. We don't yet know what the target was, nor do we have a damage assessment. Ukrainian intelligence says new Russian drones are made entirely, 100%, out of Chinese parts. The Chinese are providing lethal aid to the Russians. It's just that simple. In Mykolaiv, the demining aid camp, or the Norwegian demining aid, humanitarian aid camp, was hit by the Russians. Fortunately, no, it was a daytime hit. Nobody was in the camp at the time. They were all in the field demining the evil of the Russians. So yeah, Arne and Lars, the Norwegians doing good work down there in southern Ukraine, came under fire. Thank God nobody was home. Pokrovsk is under high intensity pressure. I mean, the whole front line. Toretsk, well, starting up even higher. Kreminna, Seversk, Toretsk, Pokrovsk, all under lots and lots of heavy fighting. No real changes to the map, but intense pressure. Coming down to Zaporizhia, But by the standards of today's Russian army, now think about this with me, because the headlines here are all large Russian assault armored column defeated in Zaporizhia. Well, when you think of that, what do you picture? Probably rows of tanks and rows of armored. That is not what this war is anymore. This war is three guys trying to sneak their way across a field to hide in a house basement until three more guys can sneak across the field and three more guys can sneak across the field. And then we have 10 guys in the basement and now we can go try to shoot some Ukrainians. It's these small company assaults that are happening all along the front line. It's man to man, man to drone more often than not. So when I say a large column armored assault was defeated in Zaporizhia, you might think that it was more than one tank, 3 armored personnel carriers, and 4 golf carts. Combat golf carts. So, right, that was the big that's what the Russians have left. That's what they're hitting this country with. 1 tank, 3 armored cars, and 4 golf buggies. There were no survivors. Russia cancels Navy Day in St. Petersburg. Not clear why. Maybe they're worried about Ukrainian drones, huh? Also, Russia is to end its biannual conscription drives. Usually, Russia does conscription drives twice a year, so there's a 6-month gap between the two. They are stopping the biannual conscription drives, and they are going to year-round, always conscripting, always looking for more men for the meat grinder. So that's the top line news for today. Again, 3 donkeys and a shopping cart. So hardly, now they're having trouble getting donkeys because the guys on the front ate most of them, is what I understand happened to most of those donkeys. And so what they've done is they've created, are you ready for this? It's like a harness that you put on, and it's connected to a little cart that you pull, and it's flexible. It has these flexible hinges so that you can get down and you can crawl along the ground with your rifle if you're an infantryman, or you can walk upright and drag it behind you if you're not under fire. So they are turning. Did you see that, Dawn? Did you see the video of those things? So, well, the donkeys are a lot less likely to trip tank mines, than any kind of heavy vehicle. I'm not sure how much anti-personnel mines are in use in Ukraine, but there's lots of tank mines, yeah. So the Russians are turning their men into the beasts of burden. Imagine your surprise. Really out of character for the Russians, am I right? So that's my top line news for today. I want to thank June, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. As everybody knows, I couldn't do this without the live sponsors and without the Patreon folks. And so if you've ever thought of sponsoring a live, the PayPal's in the description. The next live sponsorship available is Tuesday. Ted will be our sponsor on Monday. But maybe think about sponsoring an episode or join the Patreon. If you can afford to kick me $5 a month, that would really be helpful. Daryl Roberts says, rickshaws, they're like rickshaws. What is the drone production ratio for production Ukraine to Russia? Michael, I don't know. And I don't want to misrepresent the Russians too badly. When I quote 5,400 Shaheds, that's only one type of drone. And they produce many more, right? And I don't know what that production looks like. In terms of the Ukrainians, I can tell you this, according to every outlet here in Ukraine, the Ukrainians today are producing a minimum of 200,000 drones a month. 200,000 drones a month. They are supposed to be on track for 4 to 5 million drones produced in country this year. And I believe, but I don't know for sure, that that's much more than the Russians are producing. Much more. Any word on the American from Texas? Well, which one? Right, the first one, we know what happened to him. The second one, likely the same thing happened to him. The most damning evidence that he is Cargo 200. His wife produced a video in which prominently featured a sack of potatoes that she mentioned had just been delivered. Now, she's living in Russia. She can't tell the truth. She's been told not to talk about her husband on her YouTube channel, except to say that he is fine and well. So she can't say anything. The bag of potatoes is very, very damning. Oh, Roy, I missed that. If that's true, can anybody confirm what Roy is saying there? Did the Russian central bank drop their interest rates today? Usually I hear from our buddy Michael M. when interest rates go down. But I did not hear from him at all today. Let's take a look. %, 8 hours ago. What's the point of them pulling the carts? To carry their supplies, Nicola. To carry their supplies. So ammunition is heavy. You need a lot of it. Food, water, heavy. You need a lot of it. And so it's, a way to pull their own supplies. And I didn't even need to answer that. Dawn took care of it. Good job, Dawn. Or did Nightshade? Dawn did. Nice. Good answer, Dawn. So big drop today. 18%. That's 200 basis points. What's this going to do? It's going to accelerate the fall of the Russian economy. By making the money supply more readily available, by increasing the supply of money and making it cheaper, in a world where bad debt is rising, all you're going to do is accelerate the rate at which bad loans are granted and are never repaid. So, not to mention the risk of pushing inflation up. Not to mention the risk of driving inflation higher. In a world where, I forget. I don't want to say the wrong number because the two numbers I have in my head are very different. But a significant percentage of Russian companies are getting ready to lay people off. 51 of Russia's 174 coal mines have already shuttered their doors or are about to. Planes falling out of the sky in Russia. Yeah. Within 10 days, we saw an AN-24 make an emergency landing in the Amur province in Karabarovsky. And then we saw another AN-24 go down in that same area. All 48 of the passengers and crew were killed in the crash. And I asked the question, and we also saw a train derailment and a helicopter crash out there, all within 10 days. And I have to ask the question, Amur province, all the way over bordering China, right? Like you could spit into the Sea of Japan. It's at the distant edge of the empire. As an empire dies, as the circulation to the extremities gets cut off, that's where you see things fall apart first. And I wonder if this series of transport disasters that we have seen in Amur in the last 10 days are harbingers of an infrastructure collapse that will move from the outer edges of the empire until it threatens the very stability of Moscow and Petersburg itself. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll keep our eye on that, that's for sure. Did I see the apartment explosion in Saratov? Russia says it was gas, not convinced. It's a big explosion. It could easily have been a gas main. It's Saratov. It's within Ukrainian drone range. It could have been a drone attack. It seems too big to be a drone attack. And I don't know that Ukraine is sending any missiles that way. Gas explosions are nasty things. And of course, the infrastructure in Russia is 80 years old. So I did see the apartment explosion. I just don't have any reason to think it was the Ukrainians. Russian planes and transport are precarious at the best of times, and Russia's been going through 3.5 years of the worst of times. Is Russia whining? Yes, Russia's whining. Russia's whining all the time. They whine about everything. They're the thinnest skinned motherfuckers I've ever seen in my life, and ready to shoot you in the head if you point it out to them. No, Russia's not winning. Russia's going to lose everything in this war. Literally, it's going to lose itself. How many nights in a row have airports been shut down by drones? I'm not sure, Roy. I'm not sure that there have actually been that many successive nights. Like we saw Sochi closed 2 nights in a row, but to the best of my knowledge, airports in Moscow the last 2 nights were not affected. Then we saw airports in Moscow for about 2 days shut down both nights. Altogether, I can tell you right now, since May 1st, all major airports around Moscow have been shuttered for at least, the minimum is 24 hours. The maximum is the Domodedovo airport, which was shut down for 60 hours. That's almost 3 days. Since May 1st. So there is definitely, the airport shutdowns are ramping up. There are more of them, they last longer, but it's not like it is here in Ukraine where air travel has been off the table for 3.5 years. I think the term game changer is highly overused. But in the case of drones are genuinely, as I understand it, a game changer. They change the very nature of modern warfare, change the nature of battle tactics, change the nature of tactical operations. It changes everything. Steve McGinnis says, future of warfare for everyone. I agree. Ukraine drone drones actually captured Russian troops. Yes, they did, Michael. First in history of a human being surrendering to a real-life R2-D2. But it happened. Now, of course, the 2 guys that surrendered were the only 2 guys from their company that the machine gun mounted drone units left alive. I mean, it's important to note that the 2 prisoners that were captured were the only survivors that were in that trench. Josie, I hope so. Oh, Guy, were you here when I was talking about the Patriots? You were right. 1 Patriot system at least, along with those missiles, are here already. Good call. That was Joe Barnes from the London Telegraph broke that story today. Questions, comments? We have just about 13 minutes left. So again, I'll thank June, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. I'll thank Lars, who has the Discord server. Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces. And the moderator team, best moderators on the Tickety Talk. Thank you, guys. It's something, Guy. There's something up with that. It was just delivered too fast. Doesn't make sense. How could that be? There was something going on there. Yeah, home time. That's what everybody's worried about. Drones controlled by AI will be very effective. Let's hope they're not too effective and decide that we're all the problem. UK and France gone quiet. I don't know what you mean by that, Di. The UK is doing more these days than almost anybody besides, well, UK is very busy. One of the big things that the UK is doing, in coordination with their Nordic friends, they are interdicting the Shadow Fleet. The Shadow Fleet operations have actually been moved out of Kaliningrad on the Baltic Sea and other Baltic seaports to Murmansk, way up on the Barents Sea, the Arctic, which is only ice-free 8 months of the year. So that's 1,000 miles at sea going out of their way for every ship. Hey, Sam, so do you think Indian, North Korea, and Chinese workers will help with drone production? Well, we know the North Koreans have set up 5 factories for the production of war materiel for export to Russia. At least 2 of those factories are likely producing only drones. And then a 3rd factory may be mixed production, as I understand it, based on reporting from South Korean intelligence. Chinese workers, it's not clear. It appears that Chinese companies have opened drone production facilities inside Russia. And it's not clear if they're staffing them with Chinese workers or the Russians are bringing in like Ugandans and other people to work them. So that's not entirely clear either. No word on India assisting the Russians in this effort that I'm aware of. Yeah, those pesky Russians are threatening undersea infrastructure all the time. Hello, Belgium. Should NATO step in to stop this invasion? I believe so. But Akron, the political will for that to happen does not exist. So it's not likely that that's going to happen anytime soon. There is something really interesting, though, happening in the other direction, kind of. I don't believe that UK and France have gone quiet, pal. I just don't think you've seen the news. They're both very active still. So I think that your question is phrased wrongly, or based on a misassumption, a misapprehension. I don't know what 26 of 27 is. Yeah, Dawn. I think Dawn hits it on the head there better than I did. They're not advertising what they're doing as much, but they're very busy. Yeah, no, I agree, Michael. I don't disagree with that. So here's something very interesting that's happening, or appears to be happening. Yeah. Damn right, Guy. So now, look. Something really interesting did happen yesterday. and I'm trying to figure it out. We saw the port city of Novocherkassk hit. We saw the oil depot in Adler get blown up. We saw the oil depot at Sochi get blown up. We saw the railroad bridge crossing get blown up. All in Novocherkassk yesterday, right? Here's the thing. The drones didn't fly over the Black Sea to Novocherkassk. They flew over the Black Sea, then went south and hooked into Abkhazia, flew over the airspace of Abkhazia, and therefore avoided all air defense and electronic warfare along the coast. Brilliant. The only thing, but now you got to ask yourself, well, wait a minute. Are the Ukrainians violating Abkhazian airspace? Yes, they fucking are. Well, then who's Abkhazia? What are they going to do? Abkhazia is a territory of Georgia that the Russians have been occupying since 2008. So it's Russian-occupied Georgian territory. It might as well be Russian airspace. But the Russians haven't put electronic warfare equipment along the coast of Abkhazia. They haven't put air defense systems along the coast of Abkhazia, only along the Russian coast. So the Ukrainians just went through the occupied airspace. I think it's Abkhazia, isn't it? Not South Ossetia. South Ossetia is the one to the east. That's a separate province of Georgia that's occupied, but Abkhazia is on the coast. Georgia's not going to cry about it because it's not really their airspace anymore. Plus, I mean, we might hear some, boy, that's funny. That's a real catch-22 for the Georgian government. They can't complain about it because Abkhazia is in the hands of the Russians. And it's a pro-Russian government. So they can't claim that it's their territory and object to it being invaded because they acknowledge that the Russians have it. So yeah, Georgia can't do shit, I don't think. We'll see what happens. So now this is very interesting to me that they did this hook through Abkhazia. But that's not the only thing. Increasingly, we are hearing noise from the Turks, the Armenians, and the Azerbaijanis supporting Ukraine openly and openly denigrating Moscow. Imagine if the Ukrainians could cut a deal with the Azeris, who are so pissed at Russia right now, to start launching drones from inside Azerbaijan. There's no air defense down there. There's no electronic warfare down there. It's just southern Russia, Moscow, that way. Correct. Azerbaijan has begun arresting people who fought for Wagner, who were in the Wagner private military company. Thanks, Roy. Roy checked with Google AI, and it is Abkhazia. Well, Azerbaijan and Armenia, in the face of Russian aggression, night home time. No, tomorrow's Saturday. No live on Saturday. In the face of Russian aggression, Armenia, Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Kazakhstan have agreed to a pipeline deal that would bypass Russia completely. All the Kazakh natural gas and oil will now flow through Azerbaijan, Armenia to Turkey. Turkey couldn't get access to the raw materials from Russia that it wanted. So Turkey has stopped trying to deal with Russia and has turned instead to an alternate route through Armenia, through Azerbaijan, right from Kazakhstan. And so 80% of Kazakh oil is already flowing into Azerbaijan. 80% of the transport fees that Russia used to be able to charge the Kazakhs, they're not making that revenue anymore. Everywhere you look, Russian revenue sources are being curtailed. Nagorno-Karabakh is over. That's all done. The Azeris have it. The Armenians are out. It looks like that's 800 years of fighting that's finally come to an end. I do not have a magic. I do not have a crystal ball. I cannot predict the future. Thanks, Finn's dad, Zach. Okay. So, guys, it's just 2 minutes to the top of the hour. Again, I want to thank June, who is the sponsor of tonight's live, and who recently joined the Patreon. I could not do this without the Patreon supporters and the live sponsors. If you would like to be either one of those and make sure that this channel stays on the air, then please join the Patreon or sponsor a live. PayPal's in the description. Big thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server, Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces, and of course to the best moderator team on the Tickety Talk. Thanks, Tycho. Thanks, Di. Thanks, Akron. Final thoughts, final questions, anything? We have 1 minute to go. It's funny, Russia. It's not really true, Michael. That's not accurate. When will we see a major attack with long-range weapons against Moscow and other cities? Gosh, let me look at my crystal ball. Oh, I don't have one. Night, Josie. Thanks for liking the live, guys. 122,000 likes again. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Hopefully soon. That's a good answer, Di. Night, Nightshade. Get some sleep. All right, kids. It's 1 a.m. here in beautiful uptown Kyiv. I'm going to wish everybody a great day tomorrow. This is tea. This is Ceylon. It's got less caffeine than other teas, so I drink it at night. I don't think the Ukrainians will announce the attacks beforehand. Yeah. That's a great point, Cheshire. That's a great point. All right. Thanks again, June. You stay safe, too. Good night, Anthony, Tommy, Tom. Night, Nicola. Night, 007. And I will talk to everybody on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks, TK. Night, Refurb. Night, Michael. Night, Roy. Night, John Boy. Night, Mary Ellen. Take care, everybody.